Hello, everyone, guys. Welcome to our Sparta Speaker Series. My name's Allen Reynolds. I'm one of the Rangers here. A lot of you guys know me. Hopefully, you know. Then I've been here about 7, 8 years now. I've been with state parks almost 19, so I've been around for a while. I've learned a lot of information since I've been here. They hardly ever let me out of the place to there. I'm always out working on the trails or working in the field as much as I can because I enjoy it, and it's just something I really love doing. But occasionally they let me come out and do stuff like this. So I'm blessed to be here. I love this place. I love Dog Cove, the Scotts Gulf Wilderness. So I want to welcome y'all here first of all. I'm going to intro this. I am no historian. Some of you guys are going to know a lot more about this information than I do, and I'm open to suggestion, information, stories. If you're going to share a story, though, since this is the first night we're going to try recording it on a Microsoft Teams. I have another microphone, so we can save some stories or questions till later. Or if you need to correct me in something, I have no problems with people correcting me. The information that I have is through research that I've done or interviews that I've had with the family members of the families that have been at Dog Cove. So it's not perfect, and sometimes people get their stories crossed up, and you know I'm human as well. So I'm open to suggestions and critique, and just be easy on me because I try. So but yeah, I have a microphone just for questions later or stories if y'all want to share. I'm totally open with that. So, but yeah, welcome to the Sparta Speaker Series. This particular talk is about the pioneer families of Dog Cove. We do a historical hayride in the fall. Typically, each year, you guys are welcome to come out to it. We usually do it throughout the month of October. Toward the end of October is usually the best time because that's when everything starts changing. It starts getting more fall-like, and of course, the first week of November, we may have one as well because that's usually our peak colors, to be honest with you. A lot of people say it's the end of October, but I think the first week of November is very competitive with those colors. And of course, we have a lot of wildflowers that bloom that time of year, so it's a great time to come out. During that hayride, I go over some of the same information. So if you've been on that hayride, then I apologize. You're going to hear some of the same stories or some of the same things that I'll say tonight. So this is Dog Cove. Of course, this is one of the first maps we had of Dog Cove for the state itself. We're going to talk mostly about 3 different families, or their descendants of the 3 families, or the predecessors of some of the families. But we're going to talk mostly about the 3 parcels that involve the Cole parcel, or the Cole family and parcel, the Davis family, of course, and parcel, and then the Sapp area, the Sapp family parcel. How many of you guys have been to Dog Cove before? Has everybody been all the way to the back? Has everybody been back Chimney, back to the Sapp area? So if you haven't had a chance, it's a great spot to go visit. It's a very nice walk back there. You might want to wait until it's early morning or late in the evening, because this time of year it gets really hot, or just wait until the fall or winter. It's a wonderful hike. It's almost 3 miles back to it's at least 2 miles, 2.5 miles back to the actual Sapp chimney itself. If you go back to far, that's all you're going to really see is the chimney. But we're going to go over some of the families and some of the history that I know or that I've learned throughout the years here. Of course, we have total of 996 acres with the hardy track that encompasses Dog Cove. This map does not have the hardy track on it. I'm not going to go over any of that history that's in that. We're mostly speaking about the 3 parcels she's actually a Cole. And so when we say the Beecher Wallace homestead, really, we almost should be saying the John and Sarah Cole homestead in a way, because they're the ones who had purchased the property, but they're actually the ones who erected the house or who built the house. They got married in 1922. She's buried in Lost Creek Cemetery. Her parents were John and Sarah Cole, of course. She was a Burgess. She had two siblings, sister Elizabeth, and then a brother, Casto William Cole. Now, Beecher and Maud had two daughters. That was Willie Mae, Lee, and of course she was a Wallace, and then Pauline Wallace McBride. And I put on there a chainsaw story. I really like this story about Maud that I've heard over the years. Maud was at one point in time, she was a remarkable woman, and she had no issue with running a chainsaw apparently. And there was a day where she got tired of the doorways being so low that she decided to take a chainsaw herself. And I don't know if it was one of those on the honeydew list that Beecher just never got around to, but she took a chainsaw to the doorways and cut them out herself because she was tired of waiting on him to do it, I guess, for her. So she did that, which I love. And if you go back in the house, you can kind of tell that they've kind of touched it up or whatnot, but you can tell they've been cut out a little bit more. So, of course, folks weren't, I don't think they were as tall back when the house was first built as everyone is today. So I love that story about her. And I've got some more pictures of her later on. Now this lovely couple here, this is John and Sarah Cole. So that's Maud's parents. I'll get back into that in a minute. This is the only picture I have of them. It's actually hanging up in the office there. So he was born in 1856, died in 1936. Sarah, 1876 to 1963. They were married about 1897. They're both buried in Lost Creek. They had, like I was saying, Maud, Elizabeth, and Casto. The house that we call the Beecher Wallace home, we believe was built around or erected around 1900. We're not sure the exact year. Now the property that, of course, it's 170 acres there at the front of the cove. It was actually bought by John Cole's dad, William G. Cole. And that was based on a deed that we found in 1859. So, and we're still deciphering a lot of our information. So we don't have 100% of the information just yet on every detail, but we know that he did buy that from Thomas Cunningham. I've got the amount here in a minute on the exact amount he gave for that, but he eventually passed it down to John Cole in let's see, 1878. So some of these dates all run together to me. Now before him, so Thomas Cunningham had owned the farm, but only for about 4 years. So we don't think he actually lived there or did anything with the place, but he had bought the property from Mr. Asa Alexander Fraser, 1755 to 1826. So, and more on him in a minute. Again, the only thing I've got on Thomas Cunningham, we just know he held on to the property for like 4 years, and he actually sold the farm for $1,545. So it's a pretty good deal, I guess. That's about all that I've got on him. I'm still working on some of the history on him, but obviously the Cunninghams are a very big name in White County, especially in Lost Creek and in that area, and still are. So I'm sure that they were related, but more to come in the future on Cunningham, and that's a whole nother presentation in and of itself. So before him, of course, Alexander Fraser, or Asa Alexander Fraser, he was 1755 to 1826. He married Judith Mitchell, which that is a popular name as well down there. They had 7 children. They, according to the deeds that we've read, have acquired most of the property through grants. And so the question is, we don't know what grants. There's been speculation that there are Revolutionary War grants, that a lot of the property was given through those grants. We haven't verified that yet, so we're still working on trying to verify all that information. Mr. Fraser had built the first structures on the property itself. This little structure here that most of you guys have seen, probably if you've been up at the Beecher house. Of course, we have a different roof on it now. We put some tin on it to try to help save the structure itself. But it's now got this, the cedar, this is a picture of it with the cedar shake on it, or the cedar shingles on it. And we still have all those shakes. But we had to do something because it was starting to fall apart. And we believe that may very well be one of the oldest structures in White County. We don't know exactly when it was erected. But there was a cabin that was built, near it where the house is now. So, and a cool story that I'd heard from one of the neighbors down the road, that a rumor that when the cabin was built, they actually built the actual small structure. And of course, this is just folklore, so I don't know how genuine this story is. But there was supposedly a tunnel that was built from the cabin to the actual cellar here, this small little structure here, just in case Native Americans would come and try to burn them out. They had a place to escape. Now, who knows if that story is true? Well, of course, we all know kind of what happened with the Cherokee and with the Native Americans. We all kind of pushed them out of the way in about 1805. So we're talking, one of the treaties that had pushed them, and not that far away, was the actual line. The north side of Bledsoe County was north side of Bledsoe County was the northern line on the first treaty, where they pushed them the furthest in 1805. So that was Cherokee country based on the treaty. Of course, before that, it was still Cherokee country. So it was possible that it's possible that story is true, because that's how sometimes they would retaliate for running them off the properties. They go try to burn them out and try to kill the families and whatnot. So it's a brutal life back then. So but it's a cool story. Now, the reason I've got the picture of the comb graves up there, everybody knows what a comb grave is, or the tent graves. We believe that and again, we're still doing research on those, that the graves themselves is possibly the wife, Miss Judith Mitchell. We believe it's her and one of her daughters that is buried there. We're still doing research. Anybody got any ideas about what the exact names? But that's who we believe in one of the graves is Miss Judith Mitchell, and it fits the timeline about when those graves were kind of popular in '39. So yeah, that's what we have on him. All right, so that's as far back as we can go right now before we get into of course, Native Americans, but we're talking about pioneer families, right? So so that's that particular section, what I call the coal section in there. So now we switch to the Davis home, and most of you guys have probably been back to the Davis home. That's a picture of it in the 70s. I was told in the mid 70s. That's when the barns were still, you can kind of see them in the background, and everything was still straight and level and still in pretty decent shape. Of course, we're talking 50 years ago. So the land itself has come from James Davis, 1763 to 1831. From James down to Ephraim to David, and then David to Jimmy, or James Monroe, but everybody called him Little Jimmy, and I'll get more into him in a second. We can trace the land back. Beecher got the property in 1937, and then we believe that this house to be built in late 1890s or early 1900s. Yeah, I think I've already said that about Beecher's parents. They said to have rented it for a short time.
and James, yeah, he worked at that lumber mill. And he actually rode a horse every day to Bear Cove. That's part of the story. That's James Wallace. So the reason I mention that is because little Jimmy operated several mills, and he operated a sawmill. Was one of the, so I often wonder if that's the connection of why James was renting the place upstairs, because he was actually, working at his establishment or one of his places of work. So, and I'll get more into Jimmy here in a minute. David Davis, who was little Jimmy's father, this is what I've got on him. He was married to Nancy Jane. That's a picture of them with all their children. Um, the cool thing is Nancy Jane is actually the great granddaughter of Alexander Fraser, the guy that we were just talking about, who may have gotten the property, or who had the property for sure, at the front side. So she is the great granddaughter of Alexander Fraser from the research that I can see. But little Jimmy, or Jimmy, is the one in the hat with the mustache here on this side. And then, of course, it tells you who's who: John, Levi, Henry, George, and Jimmy, and then Sarah, David, Nancy Jane, and Tillman. So going to little Jimmy, he was alive from 1865 to 1931. He's buried in the Fraser Chapel Cemetery. This is his lovely wife here, Miss Lottie, who is Sarah Charlotte Lottie Dodson. They raised 10 children in that home. The reason they called him Little Jimmy is because of his small stature. He was a businessman and an entrepreneur. So we do believe he had money and probably, based on how his home was built. Whenever we were actually trying to stabilize the home itself, there were several indications that it wasn't your average farmhouse that you'd find. And we're talking like crown molding on the outside, trim on every piece of every facet of the house. It was a really beautiful home at one point in time, and very impressive what it was. There's also, and we've got, I meant to bring that tonight. We have in one of the rooms when we were pulling off, we had to pull out the floors to help reestablish and put the beams back in. I can go more into that project later. But we were pulling off some of the trim in one of the rooms to get to the floor. We were able to find hand painted wallpaper or hand stamped wallpaper, and that's just not something you find on every farmhouse. So when we have that evidence, if you come back to the Cove, we've got it in our office there. It's pretty cool to go check out. But yeah, you get to see the kind of the floral print of that. So the property itself, of course, was still farmed by the children. Of course, I'm sure Lottie helped out, and any of the other families that may have been living there. It was a very communal way of life back then, to help each other out. It's a whole different way of living than we do nowadays, but they of course didn't have all the distractions we've got nowadays. So it was pretty much, I think as soon as you wake up and start working, and you figure out how to contribute. And if you don't, then you may not make it long. So it's a different way of life. I kind of envy them. Of course, I don't envy not having air conditioning, but so Jimmy did have, again, he had the timber mill. He had a lumber, which is, a lumber mill. His family told me that he had a molasses mill at some point and a sawmill. And of course, I didn't put this on here, but not far from the homestead itself is a grist mill site where we still have the stones. So technically, it's not far from there. There's a good possibility that he was operating that grist mill, but we don't know for sure. Still working on evidence of that. But the stones are still there, and as far as we know, and we're going to do our best to keep them protected. I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to pull them out. It's actually technically not on the state property, so, but it's close to there. So, do you have a question? Okay. So here's a picture of the family, and another, of course, old picture of the house itself. Um, again, 10 children. This is them a little bit older and probably a little more weathered, but I'm betting this picture was taken near the house. And I got a feeling I kind of know where this area, close to where this picture was taken, and I believe it's around what we call Limestone Flat. But that's my belief. So, so this part of that. So going back through that, of course, the Davis Cave is not far from there. Of course, we believe that they did store some of their goods near that cave as well, as was pretty common back then. So then we'll switch to the Sapp family and the homestead back there. Now, this is the only picture that I have of the Sapp home. And this was, I used to only have this part, which was a picture of a picture, or a picture of a sketch of a picture. And I always wanted this little picture. And finally, somebody brought me this picture of the actual home itself. The home is, of course, long gone. Beecher had, someone had informed me at some point in time that Beecher was having issues with people going back there and trying to live and trying to squat in the house, and he didn't want it, and he wasn't going to have it, so he went and burned it down. Of course, it was falling apart, so I'm sure it wasn't in great condition. But yeah, this is the only picture that I know that exists of that particular home, or that house. So pretty cool that we at least have it. So it was lived in last by Mr. William Winfield Sapp, from 1885, or also known as Billy Sapp, 1885 to 1961. His dad was William Zacchaeus Sapp and Sarah Van Winkle. Of course, that name should be familiar with some of you folks that have been on any of my tours. We talk about the chimneys. That's usually what stands out the most at the Davis home, as well as this home here. And you really can't see it, and you see a little bit of it, but the chimneys are so unique and so special because they're just so well done. And we think this may be the tie that, and really and truly, the Van Winkles didn't live that far as the crow flies, as they say, up into the Gulf. The Van Winkles from Van Buren County, they weren't that far away. And honestly, if you were to go up into Scotts Gulf and then go up Bee Creek, there's a small valley up there that they call Van Winkle Gulf. And that's where a lot of the Van Winkles lived at and were from. And they were known for their quality chimney building. There's another house that's not far, just down the road on the old the Hawkins farm that you guys are probably familiar. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with that have the same chimneys. So yeah, they're very unique and of course well made and well done. For the longest time, we didn't know if there was going to be any way of even saving the Davis home, and I'll get more into the stabilization project later, but wasn't sure if we'd be able to save it. But one theory was, well, what if we could just leave the chimneys, because we believe the chimneys are going to stand for for the rest of existence unless something happens. But anyway, so we have William Winfield, who is married to Amy Rhonda Templeton. Of course, William Zacchaeus, he farmed the land. He passed it down to William Winfield and Guy Thomas. Guy Thomas sold the farm in 1936 to a DC Burton. I believe the records indicate to us that shortly thereafter, Beecher purchased the property in 37. So he actually sold the land in 36, and then Beecher acquired it in 37. It was rumored that he actually sold it without his brother's knowledge while he was actually living there. So that rumor's true. Okay. He's your grandpa. Oh, that's great. Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong on anything, because I'm still learning on this, but okay, excellent. I've got family here. That is awesome. So and you guys probably have stories. Is that now, as far as the house, do y'all have this picture here?
Oh, yeah, Jean. And the frame is made from wood from that house.
Oh,
But yeah,
okay.
They took that picture and a friend of his, my ex-husband painted it.
Okay.
No, that's not cheap. What's the figure out which one of the set? Can I come up and look at it?
You can, yeah, absolutely.
And there are
Sure.
14 of our kids, so we beat all of them.
And yeah, that's where I was getting to next. Now, William Winfield and his wife were very busy. So you say 14 children that lived. Now,
That's my
there was 16 total though. Is that your mom?
My mother.
Yeah.
That is Bessie Louise Sapp Turner.
Okay,
That's my mom.
how awesome. Well, but you've got that picture or you don't? You don't? But yeah, William Winfield and his wife, they had 14 or 14 living, but and I have a picture of all 14 here somewhere. Yeah, right here in this picture on the left. You guys probably have that one. That's 14 of them there. I've counted a couple times because I lose count there about halfway through. That's a good problem. This is, of course, them a little bit older, but I'd also heard they'd had 16, but oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, that's an older picture. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, now my grandmother carried 2 other full-term pregnancies because babies died.
Okay,
So she actually was pregnant full-term 16 times.
okay, so, and that's what I read, that there was 16 children, but the pictures only showed 14 of 16. So I never knew what happened. I assumed because of statistically speaking, back then, it was something if you had, that many live. It was hard times, of course. Here's another picture. I don't know if you guys have these or not. There's, okay, you live right here then. So yep, that's of course William Winfield and his wife, and then that's the father there, William Zacchaeus. So, so you said Louise is your mother?
Yes.
Is that her on the left then? It's hard to tell on there. We can look back through them if you want, but.
Bessie.
Seated.
They call her Bessie.
Okay,
I really can't, yeah, Louise and Jewel are seated.
Mhm.
Sitting.
I guess they're on the ground there, right?
Now, those are the younger girls though.
Okay.
So I don't, can you tell, Diane, which one's which? I believe that's my mother's second from the left.
Yeah,
See all the bowl haircuts? My mom was one of the bowl haircuts.
And she was one of the little.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, according to this, that Luis and Joel were up front, I think.
I thought your mom would be the one standing behind Amy Raymond.
It's hard to tell. I didn't know her when she was that little.
I wouldn't think so. So that's awesome. So that's almost all the pictures I've got of the SAP area, and that's one that we still lack a lot of information on. We're still working on a lot of the history there. Got a lot of it, and we'll take it in, and anything you want to share, we're all open to that because we love hearing stories, and we know the families are still around, and it's great to that you guys came as part of that. So, and it's wonderful that y'all are now part of the history that'll live on forever. I think something to be able to come back to your family farm, and eventually we'll have either some plaques or some type of interpretive panels that kind of tell a little bit more of the story in the park itself. So, but these other pictures that I've got, these are just some old pictures that people have shared through the years of some of the other folks that have either lived in the Cove or related. And I always just enjoy looking at some of these or sharing some of these. This, of course, Roy Wallace, who is Beecher's brother, and he's in a couple. I've got him in 2 different photos. He seems pretty photogenic. to me. And he's got, of course, on the right, Roy and Hallie Ann. Hallie Ann was his sister. But this is Miss Esther Underwood. And I asked her, I said, well, okay, is that a couple? Were they a couple? Were they married? No, they were just childhood friends. That's what I was told. So, and they got a picture made together. So, but yeah, good looking guy. Here is Isabel and Ida Wallace. So that's Beecher's sisters. Of course, they married and they have maiden names, but that's the only picture I've got of them when they were a little bit younger. And then, of course, here is a picture of Beecher Maud, and Elizabeth is on the left there. Now, Elizabeth did marry. She married William Casto, who is Beecher's brother. So they both married brothers. So they kept it close. You didn't have to go far to find, I guess, a husband or a wife. There's a platform down here. This is it. And if you can kind of make out what it is, there's actually a fire pit here. And then if you look on the shelves, of course, there's broken glass and bottles laying everywhere. And there's actually a skylight in it. So you get down there, you don't even have to have a flashlight. There's a perfect place for smoke to billow out of. So, of course, I guess what I'm getting at is we believe this was a moonshine still site, of course. This was it was nearest to the SAP area. So, and I think you guys, I'm sure y'all know Don Johnson. Okay, he shared a story that when I was telling him about it, and he said, well, he might have dabbled a little bit in the moonshine. I was talking about Grandpa. So. So we're assuming, but he never knew where the site was. He had just heard that he might have a site out there, and we believe this was probably Mr. Sapp's. And we don't know if it was William Zacchaeus or if it was Billy Sapp's.
And we are told that they sold liquor to Flesh Blank.
Oh, really? There might be some songs written about it. So, and that's a neat spot. If you guys ever want to go back, we'll show you where that's at. It's just off the trail. It's about 100 yards off of the Homestead Trail. You can hear the waterfall and the wind water. It is a wet weather waterfall, so at this time of year starts drying up. You really can't see the waterfall, but it's a cool little waterfall to see, and it's a neat feature to go check out. The cave is not super easy to get down into, and it's a little harder to even get out of, but it's a neat spot to go see. And of course, we call it White Lightning Cave. We didn't actually name it that. We were down there checking it out one day, and we saw this metal pipe going into the cave. And we said, well, now why is there a pipe going into the cave from the waterfall? That doesn't make any sense. None of that made any sense. So I followed it down. And the very first time I saw it, I knew immediately, of course, what it was. And I thought I'd found something really cool and special that nobody else had really seen in years. And then we get to looking it up, and of course on the cave maps, a caver had found it, and they named it White Lightning Cave. So obviously the White Lightning is named, and they figured out why or what it was used for as well. So obviously it is officially known as White Lightning Cave. So, but of course we don't have that on the map, and we don't put any trails to it yet or anything like that. But the waterfall is pretty neat to go check out. So, but cool part of the history there anyways. I have a picture of Sarah Cole here on the right. That's in 1951. That's the last one that I think anybody has of her alive. I could be wrong on that, but that's as far as I know. And then I shared a picture of these initials in the cave itself. There's HAB, which we've speculated 1891. That's definitely probably a Hallie Ann, because there is another signature next to it that's engraved that we do think is the oldest and most official engravings and the oldest graffiti in the cave. That is, but it also says Hallie Ann, and then it actually has the date that's written out. I think it's 24th of December or 25th of December. So it was around Christmas in 1891 when she was in there. We speculated that maybe Hallie Ann Burton, but we don't know for sure because we can't really look up much information about her. But who knows? We don't know for sure. Now the other initials, we can only speculate. There's a RW that date there at the bottom is 1919, and we think that one's a genuine date. There's a good chance that was Roy Wallace. There's a real good chance of that, but we don't know for sure. The MB, we think maybe that was his mom went in there with him, Mary Burton. But the NW is a mystery. We don't know. We're just speculating because they were local. And of course, Lost Creek Cave was probably a feature that they went to on special occasions like Christmas. We wanted to go, I don't know, maybe been cold. Of course, the cave environment in the wintertime feels pretty good if it's really super cold outside. But maybe they were just taking a break and wanted to go take a hike and go to the cave and see the waterfall. So they were enjoying it just as much as we enjoy it nowadays. So, okay. So as far as history, does anybody have any questions, any stories they want to share about those three sections of property or about Dog Cove in general? Or any questions about it? So I'm open to ideas or critiques.
I have a question
Okay.
about those chimneys up at Davis.
Yes, sir.
Nearly perfect. And
It's amazing.
they've never been through with the ball.
Well, it looks to me like somebody did try to stick new, like chinking new stuff in, but we've not, the only stone that we've touched is the top stone on the farthest west chimney. And there's a picture in here later that one fell off one day. And I think the rock itself degraded so much because it's sandstone. It had degraded so much that it lost the ability to stay level up there. Now I put it back on when we had a lift for a couple weeks. Doug remembers this well. Actually, it was a week, wasn't it? We had 1 week and we worked our tails off trying to do as much as we could. But the last thing that I did with that lift was I said, we gotta get that stone back up on top. So we put the stone back up on top, tried to secure it. I tried to put a little bit of glue or some kind of epoxy up there so it wouldn't, hopefully it sticks around. But
I want to change to the mountain. I've never seen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's Van Winkle's. That's who built the chimneys. From what we understand, every chimney that you find like that nowadays, that's the Van Winkle quality chimney. I mean, you can't even find anybody make them like that anymore. So,
Said if we had stories.
yeah, absolutely. Here, if you've got a story, can I? Here, can I give you a microphone? Because since we're recording it, maybe you can say it into the microphone.
She's, I had Jean.
It's
Hello?
actually, you won't hear it out there, but they can hear it on.
Oh, okay, perfect. Wrote this, it says, it's called The House. The house stands in a sheltered cove in White County, miles from any other house. Inaccessible by car, the last mile must be walked, but the walk is one of pleasure. In the spring, wildflowers cover the ground and fill the air with fragrance. On hot summer days, the sun makes a lacy pattern along the road. The quiet is broken only by the singing and twittering of birds and the scurrying of small startled animals. For nearly a century, the house has stood. The shingles have weathered gray. A porch runs the length of the house with a view of the creek. The chimney, built with perfect masonry, is still intact. A double fireplace made from stone gathered from the surrounding fields joins the front room and the kitchen. The kitchen pantry that once held rows of canned foods stands open. A stairway leads to a sloping attic where children slept. A window at one end looks out to the barn that held hay and a little loft where pigeons roosted. A path goes past the barn to a cave that has a spring of very cold water that has been used for generations to make wonderful lemonade for special occasions. It was also used to keep milk and butter cool on summer days. Once the house was home to a very large family, now scattered in many directions and parted by death. It stands empty now, except for a few stray cattle that wander through. The house is empty, but in memory, I can go home again.
So much.
Hey,
Thank you for sharing that. Yes,
Beecher got his water from the spring. Okay,
okay.
I'm not sure which spring, but he got his water. You think part of that he may have tied into that pipe that was back there?
Well, the pipe was leading from the falls directly to the actual, where the still site was, so I think they used that water for that. I'm betting, no, and where it's at is miles away
Oh,
from the
no,
beach.
well, Beecher had hoses all the way down through those fields.
So I'm not so sure, since it's a wet weather, I would think he'd try to pick something probably a little fresher or a little more consistent. I assumed he may have, and I found hoses way back up on the other side. So if you're going up into Dog Cove, Beecher's house is on the right.
Yeah.
Or on the left. I found hoses and stuff on the right side.
Yeah, that's where he got it.
Okay, and there's a pretty consistent spring that is on the right, only maybe 150 yards from the house.
Yeah,
So I wonder if that's the spring. I don't know. It's,
and Maud remembered when they trucked in all the supplies for the Beecher Wallace house.
okay.
She remembers them coming in with it, that they had ordered it.
Yeah, and this is a story that Candy shares, that the house itself was a Sears house.
Yeah,
Um,
the original house.
And so
Sears bungalow type.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm assuming. I don't know. I'd love to find that magazine. I'd love to find where they ordered it or how they ordered
It'd
it.
be cool.
I'd love to be able to share that part of it, just to,
Yeah,
but I know-
she lived in the log house, the small log house, and she remembered them coming in and building.
and so, and when they tore that log house down, I was told they used some of it for building the barn that's over on the side. But some of it went up into the woods, and there's a stack of logs up in the woods off of the high water trail that you can barely tell is there now because it's rotted out so much. And of course, that log house was most likely built by chestnut logs. And so those logs, of course, are almost gone. Just about, you can barely tell that's what it was, but there was a stack of logs. And I was told it was from the original log home. But again, they're so rotted out, there was no salvaging it. The Davis home itself was also made, a lot of it was built out of chestnut wood. So sadly, of course, we don't really see chestnut around. And I'll get more into how we doing on time. Oh, wow. Okay, it's already 7:52. I was going to share some pictures about the some of the remodel or some of the stabilization. I can go through them kind of quick. This is the house before we started working on it, on the Davis home. You guys can kind of see the foundation has come in contact directly with the ground here. And that's due to what happened was groundhogs had come in and burrowed underneath the stones that were holding the house up. And when the groundhogs burrowed underneath, it collapsed the rocks and the stones. Of course, some of the stones had actually been pillaged and taken out from other people, but because of the amount of support underneath and the lacking support, the stones collapsed, and then of course the beams collapsed, and the house itself was built on beams all the way around the house, and those were chestnut beams, we believe. And a lot of the wood and the sheathing was, as far as the sheathing, not necessarily the siding, but the sheathing was actually made by or made from chestnut. So when we got into it, of course, the whole thing was, hey, we're gonna try to put a roof on it. It's like, well, we really need to kind of stabilize it before we do anything. So if you can see, this is kind of the process we did. We took slowly and surely through volunteers and through our own staff, we decided to take one piece at a time of the house and jack it up and get it up off the ground and try to replace those beams that were rotted out underneath the house. So we took it inch by inch, and we're talking, and this slide itself, unfortunately, this slide represents an entire summer because this was a slow process. We would work on this for maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, and then we'd go back to mowing and finishing up other tasks or working on trails. When we had time, we worked on this, and Doug and Tammy helped us with this quite a bit on this project, and of course, all the other projects that are associated. But we slowly and surely jacked up. Of course, this guy that you're seeing, Matt Erie, he was kind of the brains behind helping figure out how we're going to do that. And so he did help us out quite a bit in doing that, trying to figure out, taking the house up, digging out from underneath, bringing the beam out, putting a new beam underneath. Now we used red oak underneath instead of, obviously we couldn't use chestnut, but we used red oak, and now it's not treated. And some of the wood and some of the supports we did put under it were treated just because it was closer to the ground. But we were just trying to really just stabilize the structure before it fell. It was looking pretty rough. As you can tell, we didn't have high hopes of saving this structure when we first acquired it. But through a lot of hard work, this was one whole summer. We replaced every beam around that whole house. And most days we'd only replace one at a time. It would take us about 4 or 5 hours with a whole team, 3 or 4 people working on it, trying to replace those beams. And you can see the new beam here that is in this picture. That's one of them there. So the next year, once we replaced all the beams, had it stabilized, somewhat level, and you guys might recognize some of these folks, we started tearing off the roof, and we said we're gonna replace it. And through the generous donations of the Friends Group and some state money and state funding, we were able to get a new roof for it. And we tried to replicate the same style shingle as best we could. So we and in the picture here, you see one of the lifts, and of course that's Thomas up on that lift, tearing that off. Doug's going to be quiet back here, but Doug stayed with us that whole week, and he was the machine operator. He was the one lifting us up there every time we were up there. And so actually, this chimney is the one that I replaced the stone on. You can see the stone that's missing, the capstone that's missing on that. Later on in the slideshow, you'll see the other one that I put on. So, yep, stripping the roof off. This is what it looked like on the front side, without the roof on it. And then slowly we started putting, we put the supports back under it. We helped brace up the actual trusses inside, and then we started with and we put plywood on top just because it was going to be, we felt like that was going to be the easiest way to waterproof the house. And then of course the waterproof sheeting. And then as you can tell, those and this was probably the last day that we had this. So we only had this lift for about a week, and I think that looks like Cat operating it. But the rest of the time we were using scaffolding and these things called roof jacks, which if anybody's ever used a roof jack, it is one of the most unnerving pieces of equipment to use. And it takes a lot of getting used to. So we did have a little safety cable that we strapped up to the top and kind of had a way to keep us all strapped in while we were doing it. Now, I can imagine back in the day, the people who did this initially probably didn't have much safety standards back then, and that's a pretty high roof. So it's pretty intimidating to be up there without any kind of safety gear. Okay, so this was the last day that we had, or the last, and you keep seeing all these pictures of buckets and other equipment. We really didn't have that much. I think we had this for one weekend, and the rest of the time it took us almost 2 months to get this whole thing done, because we also had other projects that we were working on, or it would rain or something would happen. You see me in the far left picture holding up the last shingle. We were so glad it was the last shingle that we were doing. And then of course I'd rented the bucket truck to put on the very top, the cap for the house itself. And of course this is some of the before and afters. Again, we raised money, and the Friends Group raised money. I believe it was over, what was it, $7,000 that would put in toward just doing this, and which was amazing of the Friends Group to do that for us. So that's some pictures of before and after. It's not perfect, but that's pretty good for a park ranger. I'm pretty proud of that project. So, and this is what it looks like, I guess, today. It's definitely, it definitely stands out amongst there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. So. You guys have any other questions about anything? About the, sure.
When do you think that the hard trail will ever be connected to?
That's a real good question. That's something I don't have an answer to, but we're hoping and praying and believing someday it'll happen. And so what it's gonna take is a willing landowner to sell. So that's what it's gonna take. Right now, we don't have that, but trust me, it's been looked at. So we try. But any other questions? Anything? So, well, thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. Yes, sir, Pete.
You're supposed to tell us when the next program.
Oh, that's a good question. Kelly, do you have any idea? It's gotta be 2 weeks from now.
It's August 21st,
August 21st, and it is,
and it will be, I think it is about bird watching,
It is.
bird watching.
Yep. fall bird
Fall
watching.
bird migration. Cool.
Yep.
Who's doing that one?
I
Not
don't
sure.
remember.
Yeah. If you're into birds, come next 2 weeks somewhere. So I'm not doing that one. I know that. So. Well, thank you guys for coming out. Y'all come back and see us.
Oh, good.